Good morning. As you'll see, I have a little bit of laryngitis this morning, and there's a lot of good in that, right? So, today is a regular meeting of Commissioners Court of Grimes County, Texas. It is Wednesday, the 27th day of February 2019. It is 9 a.m. I'd ask that you please rise for the invocation by Gary Williamson and remain standing for the pledges to the U.S. and the Texas flags. Gary?
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to us to spread this ourselves around in another day. We are here today for the meetings and business of Grimes County. Look after our judge and our commissioners, give them the wisdom that they may make the right decisions. And Lord, look after our first responders too. They're out there risking their lives whenever they're called out for duty. And also, Lord, look after our armed forces personnel, wherever they may be and whatever they may be doing. It's through your Son Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please be seated. If you have any public comments, would you come to the podium, introduce yourself, and if you would, limit your comments. Yes, please. Limit your comments to about 2 minutes. Good morning.
Hi, my name is Mary Jarvis, and I live in Corliss, Texas. I live on the south side of County Road 171, not on the beer joint side, but on the south side. Everybody says we're always on that side, but we're not. I've got three items I want to address. I'll address as fast as I can. The first item is our county road. My husband's family's had the property since 1916. We've been there since 1980, my husband and I. And it's always been a clean county road. But W.L. Churchwell has moved in and put a rental ranch, I guess you'd call it, these little mobile units. And their renters have trashed our road. I mean, it's filthy. My husband and I have gone out there. In one day, we get like 4 sacks of garbage. Until he fell because he can't bend over. And it's like every 2 days you go and you pick up and pick up. We've turned it into the sheriff's office. It gets into our pasture. It gets into our yard. The neighbor that's not there anymore, he moved because of the filth. Okay, he went back to another state. But nobody's doing anything. I asked the commissioner. Commissioner passes it on to the Road and Bridge. Road and Bridge won't do anything about it. So we don't know what to do about that. That's one.
Could you give me the road number again, please?
171.
Thank you.
South side. And then the other one is the county road itself. The county road, I've asked for 2 years to have it graded and re-rocked. Okay? Every time they grade it, the holes are deeper than ankle deep, and some of them are deeper. All he does is just plane over it, the holes are still there. But I also 2 years ago asked, there's a ditch on the opposite side. Not on our side, on this side where the houses are, but on the opposite side is an old ditch. It goes all the way to Highway 30 and goes all the way to the creek down the road. Well, this man that bought this red barn up here on 30 plugged it up, and I brought it to the attention of the judge before you. And he laughed about it. He was illegal dumping cement, and he plugged up that drainage that goes to 30. So now all of this is full of beer cans and trash. The limbs fall off, and we have to push it in there because nobody's maintaining the road. Okay, so all that water is coming on to the county road. Okay, so January the 22nd, I asked it to be done again. And this guy came out and he planed it, but he planed it down. So I've got pictures. The road has never done this before. The road, all the white dirt, mud, has gone into our yard. has flooded our storage building, has flooded our garden, and it stands in water. I know it's raining, but he can't say, oh, it's raining, I can't grade. This is going on for 2 years, and then it's been going on since it's been dry. But yesterday I went out to go get the mail, and the water was coming off the county road all the way onto my, which I got pictures, all the way onto my driveway, which is a U-shape, and then it was heading to my house. And that's between 50 and 75 feet.
Yes, ma'am.
But all of it, you can see all the white mud is into the center of our
Is this
U-shape.
County Road 171 again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, we live on it. We were the first house, we own the second house. Then Churchwell, to put in his little renter thing, he stopped up that drain. So now our second house that our son lives in, all of that is nothing but choke holes because the water is stopped up. What is draining comes across on that side, so it stands in water. But I asked the road and bridge guy to dig out that side over there so the water would get off of us. But then this guy came and tilled or graded it where it slants like this. And all of that white mud is onto us now. And it was real bad yesterday. We have had rain like 2 or 3 months in a row before. We've never had no problem. But now with all of these people stopping up everything, then there's a drainage. We own the right of way all the way to Highway 30. Y'all own a little bit of it, okay? So there was an old gin lot that was sitting there between our right of way, you know, and everything right there on 30. Okay. There's a little culvert that goes under our county road. You can see it in the pictures. There's a culvert. Well, that drained it off of our right of way under the road, goes down to 30 or goes down to 171. Well, that man over there stopped it up, and Road and Bridge had an engineer come out and dig a trench that goes back. So now it's eroded our right of way, you know, right there. It just stands in water.
Sure.
And now we have no out at all. So now all of this by the gate, we got 3 gates, four gates, and all of them are just underwater. And that's my only address. I've addressed it with everybody has either said pass the buck, I guess you'd say. And we're kind of tired of it. And yesterday, I know it rained last night, and you could just see the water just funneling off the county road onto us, and it's gone up. I got a bird bath out there, and if it wasn't for the U-shape, having that little bank there, it would be up into my yard.
Okay.
That's all.
Ma'am, we're not able to respond to.
Yeah, I know.
But if you would like to stay for the entire meeting, I'd be glad to visit with you.
No, I gotta get back. My husband was supposed to have done this, and he's sick,
Okay.
and
I
I've
can
got to
relate
get back
to
to
that.
him
All right.
and see if I have to take him to the doctor, but he's supposed to do this. Anyway, so I'm just addressing
Okay.
because it's been going on for 2 years now, and then when that guy graded it wrong, and we're not getting any dirt to fill in, and it's a mess, and no ditch on the other side.
Well, we
It's
have a
real
very
bad.
competent road and bridge engineer, and I'm sure he'll take a look and see what we
Okay,
can do.
well, so far he hadn't, but thank you anyway. Thank you for listening to me, okay?
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? And finally, no other public comments? We shall move then to consent agenda item number 3. Consider and take action to approve the treasurer's list of claims and bills. We've had that before us, had an opportunity to look at that. Are there any questions or concerns, commissioners?
Mr. Harry, we did get the motor grader. Is that up? Is that my? I don't have any questions. Then I make the motion that we approve the consent agenda items number 3, treasurer's list of claims and bills, and is this payroll also this week? Okay, all right, thank you, ma'am.
Second motion. There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 3 by Commissioner Walker, seconded by Commissioner Dobianski. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Going to agenda item number 4, County First Assistant Auditor Jessica Herrera, consider and approve an interlocal agreement with TIPS, TIPS, Purchasing Cooperative, see attachment number 4.
But she's not here this morning, so I'm standing in for her. Y'all have
Okay.
any questions?
Would you like to come to the podium? That way the world out there in TV land can see you.
Is this a contract that we had before with Texas Public Entity?
No, this is something new.
This is not.
It's just like the Texas Smart Buy or the Texas Buy Board, but it's an international, interlocal agreement where they do the bidding for contracts, so it allows us to go outside of Texas if we need to.
So,
Okay. Has the county attorney had an opportunity to review it? You have?
Yeah, it's only 2 pages.
Any concerns?
No, no, I don't. Maybe.
And it just gives us more buying opportunity, correct?
Without us having to go through competitive bidding, it's already been through the competitive bidding process.
Right.
Their main region area that kind of oversees it is actually based in Pittsburgh, Texas. So it's been through all of the Texas procurement.
There's no cost to enter.
No, sir.
I didn't see that anywhere.
I move to approve the interlocal agreement with TIPS Purchasing Cooperative.
Second. There's a motion before the court, well, we haven't voted yet.
You just want to stand up here.
There is a motion before the court on agenda item number 4 by Commissioner Mallett, seconded by Commissioner Dobianski. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 5, Tax Assessor Collector Mary Ann Waters, consider and approve the contract between the Tax Assessor Collector and the Texas Parks and Wildlife. See attachment number 5. Ms. Waters?
Good morning. As you all know, we've been trying to get in contract with Texas Parks and Wildlife to be able to register boats and motors in our office as an additional service to the citizens of Grimes County. This is the contract that they require that we sign. I've already sent it to John C. They've overlooked it, and he had some things to point out to me. He said he had no concerns with the contract, but he just pointed a few items out to me. Such as one is the term, this contract does end August 31st of 2020, and that's because Parks and Wildlife's on a 5-year cycle. That's the end of their 5 years. At that time, all contracts with them will be renewed all at the same time.
I was curious why they require 3 signatures from us and they only provide 1 from them.
They didn't ask, and I don't think we have to have 3 signatures. I was gonna ask that you and myself be signatories on this as well. They didn't say anything that it qualifies for 3 people to have to
Okay.
sign it. And once we get everything approved, signed, send it to them, they'll send us back a copy of the contract with their signature on it, so we'll have a copy of that as well.
I know Mary Ann, I know that, Ms. Waters, I know that we talked during the budget cycle last year, the possibility of you needing additional personnel, and one of the things was to incorporate this into the services for the county. Do you feel that if we agree to this, that you have enough personnel on staff to handle this?
I think at this time, because it's so new, we're
Yes,
not
ma'am.
gonna have such an influx. I think maybe next year, the next, not this budget cycle, but the
Right.
next one, that
Okay.
it may be possible that I have to ask for that position, that I have part-time to become full-time.
Okay, and this that you
That
passed
I
out
just
is,
passed out is just a list of the fees
The revenue.
that we'd be collecting. Everything in the yellow is the actual amount that we get off of each of those items. which is 10% of all of the items except for the sales tax, and that's 5% that we currently get with automobile registration at this time. It's the same with boat and motors.
So if you registered 2 to 3 million boats a year, it'd be pretty lucrative for us.
Yeah, if we had that many in Grimes County, it'd be.
They wouldn't have to be in Grimes County to register.
No,
No.
they don't have to reside in Grimes County for us to do this.
Right.
They can, any county.
And we're probably more convenient with low, small lines and
Well, and you
than some of
have
our neighbors.
the closest one, I know that they do them, of course, we have a Parks and Wildlife office in College Station off Welborn Road. And I know that Montgomery County does them in their courthouses. So other than that, I don't think there's too many other people around. So, I mean, you know, we might even draw some of the Montgomery County people because they don't want to go stand in those lines at the big
Yeah.
tax office to get it done, so.
We'll have to advertise this. I'll do it at my church. We have a lot of people from Montgomery County come to my church. And I'll tell them that we have that available.
Right.
They might come over here and do it.
So the contract asks or references a separate account so that they can do a monthly sweep. Are we gonna be able to set up that?
Yes, and matter of fact, I'm going to work with them. As you know, we're in the process of changing over from one bank to another. I'm not gonna really set this up until that phase has been taken care of first, because I don't see a sense of setting up an account in one and then closing it to do another.
Right.
But yes, we will, I have, with the new bank, I have created another account specifically just for Parks and Wildlife. That's the only money that'll go into that account, and then they will, do a sweep. As we do now, I have to ACH it. I have to go in and approve it. The state actually sweeps from our accounts, but we just have to approve it before they do.
So the computer system, if I understand it, it's called BRITS?
Yes.
Is the system, and they also reference the Texas Department of Motor Vehicle
Yes.
System. So
On
we're-
our RTS stations that we have right now, BRITS is actually a software that's on those PCs now. We just have to be, once we get contracted, we'll be activated where we can use that software. They will provide all of the decals, paper, all of that they require us to use for their receipts. So there's no cost to us other than the personnel to process it.
Very good.
The E-Verify through Homeland Security, how is that gonna work?
Ooh, I'm not familiar with that. Where was that at on the?
I believe it's on the last page. Number 17 on page 10 of 13.
I think this, I think this is where they verify to make sure that our employees are eligible to work in the United States.
Yes. I would assume so as well.
And I'm assuming that they just, the people that we sign up, I guess, I don't know, I really didn't check into that.
Well, I'm assuming if the court approves this going forward today and there's a problem with it, that you'll bring it back.
Yes,
so-
I will.
Human Resources should have all the information that's needed for this.
Right.
I see that they're wanting a
I-9, yeah.
and employees have to fill that out, especially male employees have to fill that out. I'm not sure if the females do now or not. But for them to be e-verified that if they are eligible to register for the military, you know, there for a while, I don't know where it's at the moment, but there for a while, they were required to sign up for the draft. And that's what the E-Verify does, is check to make sure that those people who are eligible to work for the military and were mandated to sign up for the draft.
Well, my understanding of an I-9 is your status as far as if you're a citizen or not within, everybody has to sign one of those when you get hired on.
HR has to verify within 72 hours of employment that you do have the right to work in the U.S. That's what the I-9
Yes.
designates. So,
So if there is, I mean, I'll check into this a little further, and if there is an issue, I will bring it back before the court on that.
but if they are employed, they've met that benchmark. If there's no further discussion, I make a motion that we consider and approve the contract between the tax assessor collector and the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department associated by attachment number 5 with the understanding if Ms. Waters finds an issue with our discussion on that page 10, item 17, she'll come back before the court.
Second.
There's a motion before the court in regards to agenda item number 5 by Joe Fowl, County Judge, seconded by Commissioner Philip Cox. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go to agenda item, thank you, Mrs. Waters. Agenda item number 6, Commissioner Precinct 4, Philip Cox. Discuss and take action to assist the city of Navasota with the Corps of Engineering drainage study. Mr. Stafford, I see you in the audience. You want to come to the podium so you can be on TV too?
Don't throw anything at me.
We won't. Commissioner, you want to lead this conversation?
Sure, Judge. This is an ongoing conversation that we've had the last 2 or 3 commissioners' courts about the issue of a drainage study in conjunction with the city of Navasota through the Corps of Engineers to address the hydrology issues within the city and surrounding areas. Mr. Stafford is here. I'm sure he's available and willing to answer any questions that the court has.
Including from the county attorney.
I've told Mr. Stafford I was keeping my mouth shut. Yeah, he didn't believe it either.
Well, and also Commissioner Walker has been heavily involved in this process and these discussions also. So,
I'll answer your questions. I've spoken with Commissioner Cox even again this morning. Just kind of as a point of reference, about roughly $2.5 to $3 million of your budget is generated in the area we're asking you to assist with. I didn't remember your full tax rate, so I just used.
Could you say that amount again? I'm sorry.
It's between $2.5 and $3 million of your revenues are generated in that area that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm talking about the whole city of Navasota as well as the industrial park.
Okay.
I'm not sure that includes all of their inventory
Mm-hmm.
that's also out there, because we are not, I'm using our numbers and we're not able to tax their inventory at the industrial park, so it's probably a little higher than what I said. But I just kind of wanted to point that out, that, you know, this is a pretty significant area of the county when it comes to some of your revenues. I know that has to come into play because you're considering spending a considerable amount of money. But just wanted to point that out.
So what is, in your opinion, what's the potential value of this particular project in the state? Roughly, then?
Yeah, and I don't know how to value it, because what it could end up doing is helping us with the Corps of Engineers in the future to receive construction funds and more engineering funds to help with the drainage. Commissioner Mallett may have worked with them in the past in his previous life. I don't remember. I don't know.
Not a lot with the Corps.
Yeah, but I know that what it does is it opens up opportunities. If this initial phase, the one where we have already committed our $70,000 that we have actually written a check for, comes through, then it begins to open some doors for potential assistance through the Corps of Engineers to improve drainage throughout that area of the county and in our city, to help improve quality of life for those citizens and also improve the land values, of course, because we don't have those homes and those businesses taking on water.
And is it, just to clarify, this study would include Cedar and Sandy Creeks, which are the main tributaries?
Right. The contract says Cedar Creek, but all of our conversations with Mr. Loxley that was here with Lance a few weeks ago, or last week, or whatever it was, is that he saw, because I kept trying to tell him this is a combination, and he agreed once they started looking at all of the information we provided, they're going to look at both creeks because they know the value to the city and the region of getting that water on out of there and making sure that those folks are safe. You know, I think previously you brought up, one of you guys brought up, you've got that trailer park out there, and almost every time there's a flood, they're stranded, and we all of us are sending first responders out in swift water to save people. And if we can hopefully reduce the number of times we have to do that, that would be tremendous.
Do you have any maps showing what the Army Corps of Engineer, what they're looking at? Did they present you anything as far as the scope of work or?
Yeah, I have a scope of work. I thought I shared the scope of work with you previously. I did not bring it this time. But
It is the full watershed of both creeks, though, right?
Well, within the city limits, it's not going to go, because we know that especially in Cedar Creek, there's an outfall that's coming from northeast of the city limits. It's not huge because it's all ranch land. So there is a little bit, I think, mid-south Synergy, their offices probably dump into that Cedar Creek part, but the rest of it's mainly ranch land.
Okay, so now the industrial park doesn't sit within the city of Navasota.
No, it's in our ETJ.
So did you say, I know you're talking about that, you're looking at all the complete watershed in the area of Navasota. Is it gonna include those areas outside or in your ETJ, such as far as Elwood? I mean, that's all part of the watershed is the issue we're having with the rail.
Right. But that area right there between the city limits and Elwood, out there where that creek, where Sandy Creek runs underneath the rail track and over the county road and everything else, and actually the state highway that goes across highway, Business 6.
Yes.
It's supposed to go under it, but some days it's over.
It's over.
And so it will entail all of that. So it should, once they make their determinations, then they can determine projects that can benefit that drainage and improve it so that we get it on to like I said earlier, to the river or to the creek, whichever we're trying to get it to. Cedar Creek is trying to get on over to Navasota River, and Sandy Creek is trying to get to the Brazos.
You and I have visited about the project, and I was hoping to visit with you yesterday, but due to some other issues, I wasn't able to get with you. I do feel like this is a worthwhile project for our area. And just like you said, because of the tax base, the revenue, not only that, the safety of the citizens, and an opportunity to work with the Corps of Engineers, which I think you've been doing that for some time. We've been seeking their assistance for
5 years.
at least. At least, and you see the potential there for some funding. Some of the concerns that I have is in asking you about those areas is because while the city of Navasota is mainly our largest city, and a great majority of our sales tax come from there, our industry, the revenue from our industries come from there, we're very concerned that we can solve some of those issues in the future. Some of the concerns I do have is that the contract initially is between you, the city, when I say you, the city, and the Army Corps of Engineers, and in comparing what's the contract between the county and the city, there are some things that I see that I think that we need to look at in terms of how, from the county's aspect, you all have a termination or suspension agreement in your agreement, and that was not addressed in the one that we currently have with the county and the city. And for that reason, I'd like to see something in the contract that if we look at the direction, or we see that the Army Corps of Engineers may not be delivering to you all what we think they should, or it's not benefiting us, then we at some way need to be able to, much like the city, have a termination or suspension clause in there. The other thing that concerns me between the two contracts is in the Army Corps of Engineers contract, we're talking about an estimated amount. This is an estimate we're receiving on the amounts, and I'm sure they have some reason why they came up with this number. But my concern from the county's part is when we look in terms of future expenditures that we're looking at, such as we're trying to build county buildings. We have a lot of things coming down the pike, such as telehealth changes over at our jails, unfunded mandates that have been given to us. We're even concerned, much like you all are, about the property tax reform and the cap that it's going to put on us. So in this contract, when you and I talked, we were looking at maybe a specific amount, but it seems to be that it could run over. You know, there is a possibility that there will be outstanding, you know, as they go along. There may be additional costs. And I really would like to maybe see from our end, since we are looking at all these things coming upon us in the future, I would like to see maybe a cap that we say we can donate this amount of money toward this project, and it not be an open-ended amount, because we do have a lot that we're looking at trying to do here in the county. I've already asked you about the maps and project changes that might occur, you know, in the scope of work that we undertake in this whole project. I need to be able to justify to all of the citizens of Grimes County why this is a worthwhile project. So I want to do due diligence in making sure that this contract is a good contract between the city and county, that we work in partnership, which, you know, we don't have a problem now working in partnership, but should something happen to me or this commissioner's court as a whole, it needs to be in writing.
And I don't have a problem, and now I'm gonna make the county attorney speak.
Yeah, I'm gonna make him speak too, because
I have no problem, and my suggestion would be that you word the interlocal agreement to be an amount not to exceed X, whatever that amount is, and that it's paid in increments as we're
you
bid. I would never ask you to foot it up. I mean, I will if you'll do it. As pay up front, and we won't return the money. What I would say is, once we've paid the invoice, we send a request to court to pay in amount not to exceed whatever the amount court chooses. I don't have a problem. We do that all the time, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't know what, does that sound okay?
I'm still waiting for you to make me talk. I guess I just have.
I'm just trying.
Yeah, that's what the agreement already says. I mean,
Yeah.
And there'll be if there isn't a cap, then there's to be a reconciliation at the end of the year where there's an accounting to determine whether or not they overpaid or underpaid. And it'd be best, I guess, upon the real numbers provided by the Corps of Engineers. Since I've been forced to talk now, I'll mention the two things that, and again, let me just be clear. It's not my role to dictate policy. That is y'all's role. And I didn't mean to inject myself in the last discussion about the policy of this. the two things that, or three things that I would point out from the agreement itself. In paragraph 2 on page 2, or article 2 of page 2, section 2.1, there's a reference to city and county acknowledge, understand the city shall be responsible for funding and paying a portion of cost incurred each month. And I think this is going to be a yearly bill, and so we may want to clarify that. And then and this was drafted by the city attorney, and I haven't responded to him at all because I didn't know the trajectory of the court. So this was his stab at it, and no one's faulting him for it, but I think maybe that should be each year. And then there's an example given that also includes the word month, and since it's going to be a yearly payment, you may want to just clarify that. And then as Commissioner Walker pointed out, section 5.2 would put the county in this with an obligation to pay 50% of what the city pays, despite the fact that the county may decide it wants to get out, and that would be because you saw, I would think, you or whomever's on the court saw that the Army Corps of Engineers wasn't doing what you thought they were doing, and you weren't getting any bang for your buck, and you wanted to opt out. You can't do that. You got to stay along for the ride as long as the city's along for the ride. But in their agreement, they have the ability to get out whenever they want. They lose whatever dollars have been paid, but they have the ability to walk. I don't think anybody probably has an issue with us making that modification. One other thing, though, I would point out is in the agreement between the county and the city on page 1, the document indicates that the Corps of Engineers will perform a flood risk reduction study related to Cedar Creek, and then it uses the term Cedar Creek flood study throughout the document. On page 1 of the agreement between the Army Corps of Engineers and the city, though, the term study is defined, and that indicates that the study area will be at Navasota, Texas. So if there's a concern from Commissioner Walker about, is this the thing that you were talking about, the scope? Is this the document you were thinking about?
Yeah, I shared several, but
Okay. Well, and I guess what I was going to say is if Commissioner Walker, if your concern was that you wanted an aerial that highlighted the area to be addressed, I haven't seen that. I don't know that the Army Corps of Engineers has provided that. If you have a question of whether or not it's solely within the corporate limits of Navasota, the document from the Army Corps of Engineers says the study will be at Navasota, Texas. So if you want clarity on that, I can't imagine anybody would object to getting you an aerial that shows, the outline of the area to be studied. So I just want to be sure. We've talked about, keep in mind the Corps of Engineers may very well have represented things to you. They may have represented things to the city. At the end of the day, given now that we're talking about two bodies of 5 people, where continuity is not always great. And let me say, their continuity is much better because they have a city manager. If we had a county manager, we might have. Thanks, Judge. I appreciate you rolling me out.
I didn't roll, I just shook my head.
Point being is, because there is the possibility that you won't always have the same people in the same place, you need to be sure that it is in black and white. So while there may be an understanding that it covers Cedar Creek or Sandy Creek or some other area, the document from the Army Corps of Engineers says at Navasota, Texas. And that's what you're left with unless you have some document that defines the area, and one would think that would be an aerial map with the area highlighted. I think those are all the things that I wanted to say. Oh, Mr. Stafford, there was a question, and maybe you know the answer. I felt like I didn't mean to be interrogating the guy who was here last, but I was trying to get a clear answer about the first 100,000. And so the document says the first 100,000 will come from the federal government. And then this expenditure of $272,000 plus the match are the dollars that will be spent after the 100,000. The only place I see a reservation referenced is when there's discussion about, because there may be a termination of this agreement, the Army Corps of Engineers will reserve some monies to get themselves out of wherever they find themselves when the termination occurs. But it doesn't say those funds will be held, the funds that will be held, I think you use the term available funds. It doesn't say it'll come out of that $100,000. When that gentleman was here, I was asking about whether the full $100,000 had already been spent, and he said, yes, a portion. I said, no, not a portion. Has the $100,000? Yes, a portion. And that was the conflict, I guess, that we were engaged in. I'm not clear if those funds that are going to be retained for the termination purposes, are they out of the 100,000, and do we know how many dollars are going to be retained?
I don't have that with me, but they have spent a large sum of money to this point, to get to this point. That was part of our original agreement with them, was that they would, because they've been to Navasota, I forget how many times, they've walked that creek, they have reviewed our photographs, they've reviewed all the engineering that we have performed over the years. And that's where that original $100,000 came into play. And they utilized that for that part of it to get us to this point, to make sure that they could comfortably go to their funding agency and say, we feel this project is adequate to study and to ask for more federal funds and ask the city, and city and county in our case now, for the matching funds. I can't remember, I've watched this, but I can't remember exactly what I've got, but I can get that.
So your thought is there's some portion of that 100,000 that's still left to help fund this deal? Don't know? Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
But I'll do some investigating.
Well, I mean, obviously it reduces the obligation of both sides, and so that's the reason that I asked the question. There is one other thing. There was a mention or a reference in the agreement between the city and the Army is talks about in-kind contributions. Did you all address that? Have there been any? Is there an opportunity to do any of that?
We've actually already provided it, and that's basically the previous engineering work that we had performed in areas that weren't completely covering this area, but they covered sections. So they've received all of our previous engineering studies that we've performed, and I don't think we provided anything else. I think that was about all we really had that would benefit them.
And so what you're saying, I think, to the court is that those in-kind contributions were taken into account to arrive at the $272,000 number, not to reduce this $272,000.
On the page where the feasibility study, it talks about the project startup was December 2015, and I think the last date I see, I don't know, was September 2016. I do see July 13th, 2018. Those costs have now come up to $84,000. Is that the amount that he was referencing?
84,000?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. That's what they've done today.
Today.
Well, to that day.
Okay.
Commissioner, do you have this document?
I do.
Okay. And so sometimes folks can talk about it, and you and I, Commissioner, talked about the word scope and breadth, and you can say, I want to know what the parameters are, what the area on the ground is, but this is the actual, I guess, scope of work with this document.
But I'll ask for the aerial map that shows you a breakdown of
Okay.
how much they're doing.
Right, and like I said, my only concern is that we do, or we ask the questions that we need to ask and address what we need to address within the contract, so that it'll be beneficial for us all. So on my part as the county, I still feel like that maybe we need to tweak this contract a little bit more. So I'm gonna ask if our county attorney will kind of look at those things and maybe get with you all's city attorney, and add those things that we're asking for in terms of termination or suspension or any other things that we need clarifying, such as payments and obligation. I heard you say monthly, and he's, so.
No, he brought up that he wanted to change it to annual, which that's not a problem.
Well, I thought the agreement with the Army says you guys will get an estimate before the year of work, and then you'll pay that on an annual basis. And our contract says monthly, which seems inconsistent to me.
Yeah, they're committing, you know, they have to commit, like right now, they've committed the money through the federal government to pay for this, as long as we made a commitment. That's why we originally paid the $70,000 so that we could call for it, because you know they'll reallocate your money pretty quick, especially when they're looking to build a wall. And so I want to make sure that we don't get our money reallocated. So that's why Lance has already submitted the 70, because that was the minimum that they told us they needed today.
Right.
So, but you did say you would submit a bill monthly, so I'm just trying to make sure.
I'll submit it annually.
Okay. Okay, we just need to clarify which
I'll
one.
submit it daily.
That's okay.
Mr. Stafford, do you foresee any problems from the city about the termination, making it the same as the?
No, I mean, I'm no attorney, as he will let you know, but I would even be okay if you tentatively agreed if the two of us worked, or our attorney and his attorney worked out the details you've requested. Because we actually had this on our agenda Monday, and we didn't do anything because we didn't have anything from you guys, so we were waiting. And I'm not trying to push, but I mean, the sooner the better, so that we can get this thing moving forward.
The sooner the better, I understand, but, and I'm right along there. But I just want to make sure that we know what we're in for. You know, like I said, even at some point you referenced to whatever the county could provide in terms of helping with this study for the county as a whole, basically. But we need to maybe set a parameter on what we're going to spend, because it's all coming out of the same pot that we're working with, and we need a definite maybe amount, not a.
Well, that's gonna be up to us.
Yeah, that's not me.
Yeah, that's
if I
what
give you the
I'm
definite
talking
amount, you're not
to.
gonna like it.
That's what I'm talking about. But the contract still, it's 50% estimated, and then it's 50% even after this amount may be reached. There may be invoices still outstanding.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is you could say right now, amount not to exceed, whatever amount you choose.
I think that we talked about this the last time we had this discussion, and I think the amount that was considered was roughly 136.
Yeah, 136, 125.
125. And at that time, I didn't hear a whole lot of concern about that amount. And I think that falls into the category of we could cap it at that amount, and if it's more than that, then that would fall on the city shoulders. That would be our contribution into this study. As far as the agreement is concerned, I certainly believe that, based on what Mr. Stafford has said, that putting in a clause that, a suspension clause, that if we wanted to walk away, we could, and that's not going to interrupt the flow of anything with regard to this study. In the study, studying Navasota proper is still within the county, and it still has a major impact both on public safety and economic development and collection of taxes. And I can, in my mind, process a study that's going to negatively impact, even though the agreement says Navasota, Texas, the industrial area that actually resides in the county. I believe that the Corps of Engineers would be derelict in their study by just focusing all of their efforts solely on Navasota. So I think that concern is certainly valid, but I think it's marginal in my mind as far as it being a major concern.
Well, the reason why I brought that up is because over the years, we have been working really hard to address some of the issues out in the industrial park and 418, is that what that sits on? 418, where the citizens live out in that area between Elwood and I think it's 418. I just want to make sure that it does include that area, because that's one of our greatest pains, is to make sure that when an industry decides to come within Grimes County and they find a home over in the industrial park, that we're able to offer them something that's not flooding, you know. And with the growth of 249 coming in, I just want to make sure it is addressed, you know.
Well, you may or may not be aware of it, and I know that he and Jose have worked hours upon hours, and some of the work we're doing is not inside the city limits. We're trying to help because we're affected as much as anybody.
Right.
And
I
I'm going to
spoke to
reiterate
that.
what Commissioner Cox and I have had a lot of conversations. I'm going to reiterate. Almost $3 million of tax dollars to the county is inside that city limits.
I'm not objecting to anything you're saying about that.
I'm not trying, I just want you to know
I'm just saying
that-
I want to make sure that the scope of work is going to include that area, because that's what pains us the most. Not only the city, we appreciate all of the sales taxes that we see that comes into the city now. So we want Grimes County as a whole to be a destination, whether it's for retail or whether it's for industry. And with all of the things that we have to address, I just want to be sure that I've spoken my piece about making sure that we're inclusive of that area also, because Road and Bridge has done project after project out there, and we seem to be making no headway. And maybe with this study we can get with UP or whatever, that railroad that runs through there, we can get it all addressed, you know, and come up with a solution, because right now
I can't guarantee you, but I would think, and I don't know if you've had that much experience with either, but if we can get the Corps of Engineers to help us, it will be easier to work with the railroad to improve those culverts underneath the railroad, which part of our problem has just been, as was brought up earlier, debris from people dumping. And I know that his crew and our crews have cleaned that up on numerous occasions.
but not only dumping water as a whole, because even with the new addition that the railroad made underneath there, it actually dumped more water, you know. Sure. It brought more water in, and along with the water comes the trash. And like I said, my only concern is I'm all on for making a commitment. I just want to know that with everything that we have going on, just like the city, when you go to talking about property tax reform and all of that, that creates, we don't know what the future holds in terms of what we'll have to address. We do know that some of the things that we heard just on last week in terms of telehealth medicine being provided because of the Sandra Bland Act over in our jails, we're going to have to address some of these large numbers that may be coming our way. We're talking about taking on a building that we have not been having to pay for a building. Right now, we currently don't pay for a new facility. So I just want to make sure that we don't go above what we could maybe.
And I understand. I'm not trying to I guess argue with you on it. I just know that you know, we all face the same thing, and of course, working together, we're going to be much stronger, both in conversations regarding tax caps, conversations regarding flooding, conversations regarding economic development, and just so on and so forth. That's why I'm here, just trying to be, you know, partner to do this, because it benefits your citizens as well as our citizens to do this, and that's the reason.
I guess I'm really addressing Commissioner Cox. I want to make sure I'm hearing his concern. Maybe I'm not quite understanding if I'm saying that we're, maybe you say you didn't hear any pushback from the 136, 125. I'm trying to make sure that I'm understanding. Are you trying to say that if it's more than that, we would take care of that portion, or what?
Well, I mean, that would certainly be a discussion that this court would need to have this morning as far as that's concerned. I mean, I don't, that's just the starting point. It's half of what is it estimated here. It was a number that was talked about in the last couple of meetings that we had about this. But it goes back, and not to change the subject a little bit, but in our initial conversations, we were talking about some of the cooperative efforts that this lends itself to with regard to the city and county, and you mentioned the Sandra Bland Act. Well, I'm certainly not opposed if in fact, whenever we get those mandates, the city houses their inmates in the county jail, and I'm certainly, can't speak for the city or Mr. Stafford, but I would probably say that it's not out of the realm of possibility that we could approach the city to help offset some of those expenses as well. So there's some potential for some other cooperative efforts with regard to this, as well as things coming in the future.
It happens every day. I mean, you can ask Chief Deputy, we work together on a regular basis. Emergency Management Coordinator, we work together on a regular basis.
I'd like to address the county auditor in terms of the amount. Do you see any issues?
Probably it would come out of fund balance, and that would just be a drop in the bucket, I guess, towards the building.
I haven't heard from any other commissioners. We don't want to hog all the
Well,
time.
I guess my only concern would be, I know that we can qualify for drainage improvements. It's not just, included within the city limits, it's also outside within pretty much any part of that watershed that would qualify for those type of grants that you.
I can't give you that answer, but I can get that
Yeah.
answer for you if that helps us to qualify further upstream.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'll ask you.
Okay.
Now, I did, Mr. Harry, I don't think he was here maybe the last time. And you talked a little bit about, was it Harvey money or money that's available that y'all are using to address some of this?
That we are, we're gonna try to. That's,
You said that, I think at one time, you got the question answered that we could use some of the funds from.
they approved that it could be used. We don't have, actually, we don't have our award, and we don't have our guarantee at all that they can do it. They just, the Texas General Land Office told me that this would qualify as a project for the Harvey recovery funds that we're going to receive. Excuse me. I've not guaranteed that to city council or anybody else because
Okay.
I don't have a guarantee even that we're getting any funds.
Okay.
I mean, we've all got the same letter and the same information. I think there is a lot of discussion within our Council of Governments right now of the allocation method, and that may change, which could potentially benefit Grimes County a lot if it will change, due to the fact that we were most impacted in the region by Harvey. But I can't guarantee any of that. I don't know if anybody else has heard anything, but that's all I've heard. I know Judge has, or I believe you have been in conversation with the COG on that method of distribution. I don't know if we've really accomplished anything yet because I haven't received any information yet.
Well, we don't have a check in hand.
Exactly. So to clarify, we are going to try to use General Land Office funds from the Harvey recovery to help pay which would be, if you guys went to, we'd pay as much of it as we could pay, which it won't cover half of that cost, but at the current method of distribution. But City Council committed to do this project, even if we have to take it from our fund balance, to do it because of the importance that they see to the citizens and making sure that we do what we can to get this drainage improved.
Well, I wanted to hear Mr. Walker to hear that while you were
Okay.
here, while he was here.
Just a couple comments. We had a conference call last week with the GLO and BBCOG regarding the Harvey money. And I think the upshot of that is that the method of distribution for the initial funds is not going to change. It may change for the, unrequested funds or funds that people didn't speak for. There'll be a second round out of this, this initial allocation that will probably come up next year, late this year. The method of distribution for those funds may well change, but I think the consensus is that what we've been told in those letters is what we're gonna get out of the first round. And I think that people sort of feel like we beat that horse to death and it's time to move on and go ahead. If Mr. Stafford's correct and the GLO is saying that this project would be eligible for use of some of those funds, I would think that would also apply to the county's funds. And that might be an alternative source of funding for this. That I would be, as a matter of principle, I'm supportive of this project. These are problem watersheds. Sandy Creek in particularly affects the county more directly than Cedar Creek, but they're both problem areas. I haven't been involved in the contract language or any of that, but as far as a matter of principle, I think the study is worthwhile. I would point out that this is just a study, and that the next step beyond the study is that there be another contract, another agreement with the Corps of Engineers for design of improvements sometime in the future, which will make the funds used for this look small in comparison. But just be aware that, there's another step beyond this. But I do agree with the commissioner that having the study may well increase our leverage with the railroad on getting improvements made there, which they have a history of being somewhat intractable on these kind of things. So again, I think, not getting into the details of the agreement and how the city and the county might share, but I think I would be supportive of the project overall, and I think it's worthwhile for the county to participate. Navasota is part of the county, and there are some significant problem areas down there that I think this may be a good step in the right direction toward solving those. I would be careful, just one comment on the contract, I would be careful that the final agreement with the Corps specifically references both Sandy Creek and the Cedar Creek watershed, because I don't want there to be any misinterpretation. They are separate watersheds. I don't believe Sandy Creek is a tributary of Cedar Creek at any point, and so there could be some misunderstanding there if we're not careful of the language.
Could I respond to that? The agreement between the Corps is with Navasota, and that language is already set, and it says Navasota too.
Before we sign our agreement with
Right.
Navasota, we need to make sure that they've asked the right questions and gotten the proper information out of the Corps.
Right, and I was just making that point to the court, piggybacking on what you had to say. Could I ask Mr. Stafford, I assume this is not a sole source issue, right? I mean, there were other folks that engineering firms that could have done this study, correct?
Oh,
Could do this study.
any engineering firm that specializes in hydraulic and hydrology studies could have done this.
Right, and so I'm guessing that y'all used the discretionary exemption to get around competitive bids for the amount, is that right?
Yeah, because we're working with another government agency to do this. There's also the possibility that they will contract this with a private engineering firm. Because they do that on multiple projects that they do. They can come back and then accept bids. Because I've already had 3 engineering firms contact me and ask for the contact information because they want to go talk to the Corps about doing this study for them.
Right, but typically when you looking to comply with the competitive bidding requirements and you do an interlocal, the other entity has done the competitive bidding process. I mean, it's typically a circumstance. I would say the court, if you found this item necessary to preserve or protect the public health or safety of the residents, then I think you got a discretionary exemption that's built in. I just raised that issue that you, as a court, are relying upon what Navasota has done and that they've determined this is the best way to get this study done. And you're committing the tax dollars of folks in Iola and the folks in Carlos and the folks in Plantersville for a project in Navasota. Not to say it's not worthy of that, and you certainly do the converse on a regular basis when you interlocal to do the roads or the 911 or the sheriff working in those cities. So there's a trade-off there. One last thing, and I'll shut up for now. You talked about, Commissioner Walker talked about this is an estimate, and then you guys were tossing around a hard number. Keep in mind, when the term is estimate, unlikely, but it could come in under the 272. So just putting a cap on it, I don't know, then the city would end up paying less than half if the number comes in under 272. So you want to say 50%, no more, but no more than X. You don't want to merely make it a hard number.
I agree. I would actually recommend to you to say not to exceed this amount and only to pay the amount that the city pays. I mean, I'm looking out, I'm one of your taxpayers too, so I'm looking out for both sides of us here. I want to make sure that you don't pay more because you have other things to do just like we do.
Sure.
So we're not here trying to, hit the lottery with you guys. We're just asking, can you give a little to help us get this project underway? And hopefully if you give a little, then the money we save from our general fund would be able to go to another project that would benefit the citizens in another way. That's all we're asking.
Well, whatever terminology y'all come up with, you're the attorney. That's above my pay scale. But whatever terminology that addresses that was what my concern was.
I understand, and that would obviously depend upon the court saying what that number is, what the cap is.
We've had a lot of discussion. Is there somebody that would be willing to make a motion or bring it to a motion based on our discussions? Commissioner Cox?
Yes,
I have one more comment before we do that. Brad, you mentioned that there's water that comes in from farmland, and I know that the water that goes out through the industrial park goes on to farmland. Have you all talked to the USDA as far as grant money from them? They do have grant funding for drainage projects. I know we talked to them back in 2015, I believe, on the Rocky Creek, where we had a road almost washed away. We didn't get that grant, but they do have funding for some drainage projects.
It's my understanding that USDA would not be eligible to match Corps of Engineer funds because that's two federal agencies matching each other's funds.
Okay.
The only way we're getting away with doing it through the Harvey Recovery Funds is because it is passed to the Texas GLO, then passed to us. So it's because I asked the same thing. I was trying to figure out how are we going to do this without us spending a penny, and that was the answer I received. I don't know any other way to do it right at this point because I've tried to find, because I was trying to keep us from spending a penny, but I haven't been able to.
Yeah, I'm not addressing the money that we're spending here. I'm talking about when if we are successful in getting that water moved faster, it's going to be dumped on farm and ranch land out there, and part of it's going to go on TDC property, I think, out there. There may be something that we could do on the other end of that to move that water faster to get it out into the rivers.
Correct.
Yeah.
But now, that would be something that you guys would have to initiate. I mean, maybe we could participate, but because it's outside of our jurisdiction.
Sure.
Once it leaves our jurisdiction, that's gonna, the effort is gonna be on you guys, and then that doesn't mean you can't, as Commissioner Cox said, come talk to us and say, hey, how can we partner?
Yeah.
But that's a definite possibility. And just kind of a FYI, the city has $3 million of projects for drainage that will be occurring in the next 12 months. And actually, it's more than that. It's actually $4 million. $3 million of grant funding and $1 million of our funds to address internal drainage in the city to get it back to these creeks, which is still going to affect all of this.
Yeah.
But we already have those projects guaranteed through the the 2015 flood recovery and the 2016 flood recovery. We received $3 million for drainage projects. And then our Economic Development Corporation is committed, and actually we're probably a month away or 2 months away from bidding a drainage project in the downtown to help alleviate some of that flooding in the downtown area. it pushes all of that water into Cedar Creek.
Was your question answered?
Yes.
Commissioner Cox?
I have one other question. When you talk about the projects you have coming, that's the same railroad, right? So we're gonna take the water that runs, some of it doesn't go under to the Sandy Creek, but it all comes back to the Cedar Creek. Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Cox?
Judge, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the interlocal agreement to share the cost related to the Cedar Creek, Navasota Section 205 flood risk study. And in that agreement, contingent on that we can put a clause in there for the addition, or put an additional clause in there for the termination of Grimes County's participation in the event that the county deems that necessary, to change the wording from monthly payments to yearly payments, and to contribute 50% of the cost to the program, but not to exceed $136,000.
136, 125.
Okay, $136,125.
Okay.
Commissioner, could I ask, just, Mr. Walker raised the issue of being clear that this addresses both Cedar and Sandy Creek. We can't change the agreement as it stands with the Army, but we can affect the interlocal that we have with the city. As it stands now, it indicates that Corps of Engineers will perform a flood risk reduction study related to Cedar Creek only. And if Mr. Walker is asking that we also add Sandy Creek, it'll change some of the other language. What it would do is, it's not going to change probably what the Army Corps of Engineers is going to do. They're going to do what they told Navasota they're going to do. But if you discover that the Army Corps of Engineers is not going to do the portion that you want, you can terminate. So I'm asking the question, do you want to add Sandy Creek to the agreement with the city?
The study is going to encompass a portion of Grimes County that's heavily populated. I understand the need that we're going to have to study Sandy Creek, and I think that based on the information that Mr. Stafford has communicated, will include Sandy Creek. At this point, we're going to have to do both, regardless of whether one is encompassed or not in this agreement.
I understand. I'm just saying, for drafting purposes, do you want me to ask the city to make that change to say Cedar Creek and Sandy Creek?
I don't, per se, in my motion, because I think the project's valid enough to go forward as is.
Okay.
I mean, if the court is uncomfortable with that, they can certainly vote no.
Thank you.
Is it some way we could word that to, I would like to see it worded.
Well, he's made a motion, so.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's still a termination
I mean,
clause in there whether it's not
Yes,
going the direction we
that-
want it to as well, so.
So is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 6 by Commissioner Cox, seconded by Commissioner Walker. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Judge, we will also provide, every time we receive any updates, I will coordinate with you guys to
Whether it's
bring it.
daily, weekly,
I'll bring
monthly,
it
or
to you,
annual.
whatever it is.
Okay.
And I'll be here if y'all need me.
With regard to that, Judge, it would, I mean, if the court felt like they wanted to create a committee or a liaison, I'm sure Commissioner Walker would volunteer as well as myself to be the liaison between.
I think,
Liaisons,
I
okay.
think whatever you send to the court, make sure at least these two commissioners get it, because it affects all of us, but it directly affects the constituents and their voting precincts.
Yes.
Okay,
I'll
sir?
just leave it as, when you need something from me, you tell me, I will give you everything I get.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.
We're going to go to agenda item number 7, Emergency Management Coordinator David Lilly. Commissioner says 4, but it's precinct 3. Barbara Walker. Review and take action to release the road construction bond for Reagan Estates and accept the maintenance bond in the amount of $55,000 and approve placement of Reagan's Way into the one-year maintenance period. Mr. Lilly.
Yes, Judge and Commissioners. First, there needs to be a correction to the amount. I received the maintenance bond yesterday from Mr. Hassel, and they actually made it, for whatever reason, they made it $57,891.32. So 10% of the construction bond was 55, so it still meets our criteria for giving us the amount that we would need for maintenance if we had to take it over before the one-year period. But I just want to make sure I made that clarification. Mr. Walker and I, what was it, about 3 weeks ago now, we went out and actually drove the road, Reagan's Way. It's actually kind of like an L-shaped road. It comes in straight off of 2020. Yeah. And then turns to the right, and there's a large turnaround at the end of it. And this was, Mr. Hassel constructed this road, and it was constructed with concrete, rebar, and with curb and gutter. And we met Mr. Hassel and the developer out there that day and drove it. It was a little rainy that day, but it was, we were able to drive it and observe it. We're very pleased with what we see. It's not showing any issues at all from what we could tell. The drainage looks like it was well designed, and you know, they had already seeded it for you know, controlling the embankments and the land outside the curb. It was already starting to sprout when we were out there. So, like I said, we're confident that the road does meet the county standards. In fact, in some ways, it even exceeds it. The tests that came back showed on a number of locations that it went above what we require for the minimum kind of concrete strength. And so we're confident that the road is ready to go into the maintenance period.
Commissioner Walker, is this in your precinct?
It is, and.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. We had an appointment to ride it yesterday, but the storm came through.
Sure.
But I feel confident in the two gentlemen,
Okay.
Mr. Walker and Mr. Living. I would, if there's no further discussion, I would like to make the motion that we release the road construction bond for Reagan Estates and accept the maintenance bond in the amount of $57,891.32 and approve placement of Reagan's Way into a one-year maintenance period.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 7 by Commissioner Walker, seconded by Commissioner Cox. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lilly. Mr. Walker, Road and Bridge Report, agenda item number 8, consideration and possible approval of a water line installation permit on Wixon Creek SUD on John Rice Road and County Road 110. It's our attachment number 8.
Thank you, Judge. This is actually 2 separate permits. John Rice is for a 1.5-inch water line for a service extension to a home. County Road 110 is putting in a 6-inch water line. They are, as you recall, we did a permit on 110 just a couple weeks ago. They are doing work at their water plant there and making some improvements related to that. So they've come back for a second permit at that location. Again, these are both routine permits. The John Rice location is only 1.5-inch line. It's not adequate for a fire hydrant, and then the connection into the water plant is not a location where one's needed.
I move to approve the water line installation permit for Wixon Creek SUD on John Rice Road and County Road 110.
Second.
There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 8 by Commissioner Mallett, seconded by Commissioner Dobianski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, consider establishing a permit for temporary water line installation in the county right-of-way. See attachment number 9.
In this item, I'm asking the county to create a new permit, one that we don't have currently. In the past, the county has been approached various times for permission to put temporary water lines in our road right-of-ways. Generally, these are related to oil well fracking projects where they need large volumes of water.
And these are on the surface, are they not?
This is, yes, the temporary water line would be laid on the surface. It's a flexible, basically looks like a fire hose. It's a fabric line. The permit we've proposed requires that all crossings be made by means of a culvert structure or under bridge or something. There would not be any crossings of the county roads or private drives except by an underground structure, so it would not interfere with traffic in any way. Generally what they'll do is lay the line right up against the fence as close as they can or it's out of the way. But we do have language in here that would make them responsible for any damages that occurred. But previously, the county either wrote a specific agreement or took and tried to modify our normal water line agreement, which isn't really appropriate because the requirements for a typical water line are all based on underground installation and all that. So I decided it was probably more appropriate to draft new language and create a new permit. We are asking in this permit that they provide a certificate of liability insurance in the amount of $100,000, which is typical for some of our other permits, particularly the road use agreements require that same level of insurance. There are fees associated with this or proposed to be associated with this in the amount of $500 per crossing plus $1 per foot for the length along the road, just to cover some of the administrative and inspection costs associated with it. And then we've established some timeframes.
Mr. Walker, would you consider those fees to be kind of consistent with what the industry is used to?
We were provided several samples from other counties.
Yes, sir.
Brazos County basically did what we had done in the past, was try to modify the water line permit. I don't recall there were any fees associated with that. Madison County had a very simple agreement, which did not encompass any fees that I recall. It's just like a 2-page agreement. I think this is probably a reasonable fee. But certainly, if we have an applicant out there that wants to do this, but this is just to create the permit right now. If they have an issue with the fees, we'll certainly hear about that.
Okay.
We can discuss it at the time of their actual application. Again, I think it's probably not an unreasonable fee. If you run a half mile down the road, $2,500 plus the $500 per crossing is not going to be an insurmountable. I think there are definitely some costs associated with administering these permits, and quite frankly, I don't want to make it too cheap and too attractive for them, where there's just an excess number of these coming along because it's easy.
It's easy. Sure. No, thank you.
Then the other, as I said, towards the end of the permit, we did establish some time frames. I'm recommending the permit itself be good for 180 days, and that we give them an additional 45 days after their project is complete to move their facilities from the right-of-way. Those figures I did run by the one applicant that has approached us as far as timeframes related to a typical project, and they did not have any objections to those timeframes. Initially, they were asking for essentially a perpetual permit, and said, no, we're not going to do that. But and they're thinking, okay, we're going to do a well here, then we're going to move on and do another well, I would like to review those every time that situation comes up, so I didn't want to make the permit, you know, too long, and I think the 180 days is reasonable for a typical well drilling project. Probably more than necessary, but I think it's a reasonable number.
Okay.
Again, this, if y'all approve this, then in probably a couple of weeks, we'll have an application from a drilling company.
You don't see it, how often do you see this type of application with above ground water, temporary above ground?
This is the first one that's come in since I've been here, in almost 2 years now. The county has had several of these in the past. The county has approved them at times in the past, and they have denied them at times in the past.
Yeah.
So, part of the reason I wanted to bring the whole issue before the court, because I think during Judge Lamont's administration, we did turn down one of these applications.
I think the level of drilling has been down the last 2-3 years. Potentially, the level of drilling could increase, so we might see a few more of these in the future than what we've seen in the past.
That'd be good.
Does anybody want to make a motion?
I make the motion that we approve the approval of a water line installation permit for Whitson Creek SUD. I'm sorry, that's wrong. For establishing a permit for temporary water line installations in the county right of way.
Second motion.
There's a motion before the court on agenda item number 9 by Commissioner Walker, seconded by Commissioner Dobianski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Walker, your road and bridge report, please.
Yes, sir. We have had actually a little bit of a better spell of weather here in the last couple of weeks. We've been trying to take advantage of that, get a lot of rock put out. We have done some culvert projects. The one in particular, we did an EMP project on County Road 215. Put in a multi-barrel culvert there, which is associated with one of the TxDOT bridge projects. That completion of that project and the one we did recently on County Road 237 brings us up to date with TxDOT on all the EMP projects we owe them currently. However, you will be seeing in the next few weeks some additional AFAs from TxDOT for some additional bridge projects, and there will be new EMP projects associated with those. So we're caught up, and then we're going to start over on a new batch in the near future. We're currently working on the reconstruction of the bridge on County Road 168 that was damaged by some construction equipment a few months ago. The bridge contractor started driving piles yesterday. It should be finished, if not the end of this week, early next week on that project, and get that reopened.
What road was that?
It's on 168, it's right at 168 and 127, right at the corner. And we are finally seeing some good progress on the County Road 141 head wall structure. Palisota got the downstream head walls all poured now, and they're getting set up to do the upstream now, so they took advantage of a little bit of break in the weather we had to get a nice chunk of work on that project done. Drainage crew has been focused primarily on County Road 132. They're making good progress out there, although my foreman says they could stay out there the rest of the year if we would allow them to. There's a lot of work to be done out there.
We need you.
Or elsewhere, we've got the County Road, the GLO grant for County Road 201 and 202, the surveying and design work is progressing. That's work that's been done by Jim Lassiter. They've been out on the ground surveying those alignments and developing their plans for that. And then we're currently developing projects for the county of the Hurricane Harvey grant funds that we were notified of recently, which that grant was for $334,000, and we're trying to identify projects that fit their criteria. That whole progress program has been a little bit backwards. That they notified us, we're going to give you this money, now submit an application for what you want to do. Whereas typically there's a grant available, submit an application, and we'll evaluate your application and tell you how much money we're going to give you. So it's kind of topsy-turvy, but we're working through it, and hopefully we'll be ready. We did request and receive an additional extension to file that application until June 30th, just because of some of the issues that have come up on the method of distribution of those funds, some of the things you heard about earlier. I think that's all kind of settled down now, but we still need to develop the projects and prepare an application, so we felt like it was appropriate to request more time, and they obliged us. And then, again, on the 2016 GLO grant, we have been notified of that grant application. We have not seen the contract from the GLO come in yet, so I think they're still cleaning up some of the paperwork behind the scenes. Hopefully we'll see that in the not too distant future. Questions?
I do have a question. Going back to the drainage, the side ditch work has been on hold due to equipment maintenance issues.
The ditching machine has had there's cast iron coupling, or not coupling, but the body around the shaft is a cast iron body, and that had been damaged, and we've been waiting to get a replacement back then. That's had to be ordered from out of state, and it's just been slow.
So we're getting it back up and running. Just
We will get it back up and running, but it's been down for a while, so we've had him doing other things, plenty of other things for him to do in the meantime.
Just for a heads up, your crew, are they still not Monday through Friday right now?
We will be switching, March 10th will be the first day that we'll go on the summer hours. The switch to daylight savings time seems like it's earlier this year than it has been in the past. We're going to stick with that practice. So a couple more weeks and we'll go back to 410s.
Okay. You have a lot of overtime money that you can work on Saturdays, Fridays also?
We have some overtime money, and we have actually been using some of that when take advantage of the weather when it did improve a little bit. I won't say there's a lot of money.
Because I know we've lost a lot of ground this winter, and
We have.
catch up we can do
Yeah.
with the.
We have, but yeah, the summer hours are more efficient.
Sure.
We don't spend as much time traveling to and from the job site.
Right.
We have more time on site and less in transit, so that helps.
Sure.
That makes the guys happier too, so.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to agenda item number 10, consider and take action regarding the burn ban and authorize the county judge as signatory. Be my recommendation to take no action. Is there any consensus on that? Okay. Any, agenda item number 11, any updates on the strategic plan? Just a reminder, we do have a strategic plan workshop coming up. My head doesn't tell me exactly when that is.
Yeah,
Is it
March
the-
11th.
And that is where, Cherie,
Where?
where's it located in the
It
time?
will be here on Monday, March 11th at 9 a.m.
Okay. So
That's
I-
Road and Bridge.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is the road and bridge one. I don't have the other one. It's not with me.
But we do have one scheduled.
Please so.
So I would encourage the commissioners to review the strategic plan, figure out, in your mind, what's done, what's in process, and if we need to prioritize or make some modifications there. But we'll do some homework between now and then.
I do have a comment.
Okay,
Mr.
sir.
Walker and I met with Energy Transfer last Friday.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
And this is kind of concerning the strategic plan. Energy Transfer's got a project going out on 215, and they've destroyed that road for about 6 months out there off and on, and we spent quite a bit of money repairing it. They have agreed to try to move forward and do some repair work on that. We told them that we now have a weights officer and that we will have them out there on the road. I think that's some leverage that we can use. I've seen this happening on 405, 409, where the 446, where Mid-South has got a contractor working on the power lines out there. At the same time, we've got these pipeline contractors, and they have literally destroyed the ditches on 405 between 409 and 406 over there in many places, because the contractors working on the power lines have the trucks stuck there, and then the pipelines are going around them and tearing the ditches up and the roads out there. I think in the future, we probably need to, especially with the winter we've had, if they're gonna have to repair that road, we need to hire contractors to do that and let our guys do the normal repair work that we do, because that's gonna put us behind trying to get caught up with all of that at the same time. I think that's something we need to probably look at. And with this project with Energy Transfer, they had mentioned to me that they might do that early on in this project, and when we meet with them again, I will bring that up. So, I think we need to look at that.
Maybe Mr. Foltz could advise us on that in the near future.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good topic to discuss at our.
At our meeting.
In our road work, okay. All right, with that, then we come to agenda item number 12, motion to adjourn. Is there one?
I move we adjourn.
I second.
Motion before the court on agenda item number 12 by Commissioner Dobianski, seconded by Commissioner Walker. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.